Are you sure?
Are you sure? How can you be so sure? How can you be so sure?
Little smirk.
My Cousin Vinny, 1992, rated R, starring Mr. Joe Pesci,
Mr. Joe Pesci.
alongside Marisa
Marisa
Tomei, featuring Ralph Macchio, Mitchell Whitfield, and Fred Gwynne. Two New Yorkers accused of murder in rural Alabama while on their way back to college call in the help of one of their cousins, a loudmouth lawyer with no trial experience. And the madness ensues. Director Jonathan Lynn, written by Dale Launer. Oh, Dale Launer wrote Ruthless People. I made you watch. I think I've made you watch this. Danny DeVito, Bette Midler, Judge Reinhold. Danny DeVito hates his wife and hires people to kidnap her so he can get her money, and then there's like a reverse Stockholm syndrome.
Wait, where the
captors actually fall in love with her.
The captor. Captured.
Yeah. Oh, he also wrote Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Scoundrels.
Scoundrels.
So yeah.
Wait, I don't think I've seen that one.
That's with Steve Martin and Michael Caine. Jonathan Lynn directed Clue, which is one of my all-time favorite movies of all time. Yeah.
Heaving breaths. Flames on the side of my face.
Side of my face.
Oh, awesome.
Got Marisa Tomei the nomination and the win for Best Supporting Actress.
Really? For this movie?
Of the Oscars in 1993.
Amazing. She was amazing.
She was amazing.
First impressions.
First impressions. What's your first impression?
I liked the chemistry between Marisa Tomei and Joe Pesci. That was really back and forth. Really awesome. Oh, she's beautiful.
I had agree. Yeah. You said it first. So Marisa Tomei is
wow,
easy on the eyes.
She looks the same. She's so young still.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
She's a real pretty lady.
She's a real pretty lady.
Yeah, I had that in my notes. Tomei Pesci have great chemistry.
I wrote that in my notes too.
Aww.
So they're awesome together.
They are. They were awesome together.
It's pretty great.
And, I bet that is what made this movie that otherwise probably would have just been like
meh.
Some kind of 90s comedy a little bit
elevated.
Yeah.
For sure. Absolutely.
Something that still is...
Can you think of anybody else who could be cast in that?
Yeah, I feel like Joe Pesci,
pull it off
perfect for that role. Yeah.
I can't either.
He delivered.
For sure.
A lot of Pesci-isms. I'm probably going to coin that phrase, but...
Pesci-isms.
Yeah, just like the tiny guy getting all riled up, like he does in so many of his movies. But yeah, Pesciism.
Pesciism. I like it.
I just created that.
TM.
Right on the spot. Genius.
All right. Yeah, I thought it was great.
Agree with me.
No, yes, of course.
Full disclosure, we've both seen this movie before, but I thought this movie was hilarious when I first saw it with my parents on pay-per-view. When I was probably about 8 years old.
Cool.
Obviously jokes that I probably didn't get at that age, but, many quotable scenes. Like two Utes.
Two Utes?
Two what? Utes?
Youths.
Oh, sorry, two youths.
Youths.
And then, of course, are you sure?
How can you be so sure?
Another
I almost
line.
forgot where this quote came from.
That's one of those quotes that we throw out at each other so often that we forget that it's actually from a movie.
I almost thought it was from a horror movie. How can you be so sure?
It does
sounds like
cheesy, like it would be from a horror movie.
I don't know.
So I've seen this movie a bunch. It probably was maybe I could have been up to about double digits, I'd say, at this point. With My Cousin Vinny?
Really?
It came out 31 years ago.
I don't know.
And I am older than this movie. So the potential to see it numerous times is possible.
That's interesting. No. That's totally possible. You're just not one that repeats movies a lot. Not like me, who has to watch Unbreakable or Grandma's Boy.
When it comes to Joe Pesci, there's no limits.
I think I watched the first time with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you made me watch it.
Right, because I was like, you've never seen My Cousin Vinny?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you're from the East Coast.
I suppose.
You kneel at the altar of Pesci.
Sure, yeah. I liked all of the characters, even the opposition.
Even
they were good people.
So 31 years old, this movie, and I would say coming from the early 90s, not a lot of cringe moments where you're like, well, that's not okay today. For the most part, I feel like it still stands up. Well. Yeah.
I liked it. Yeah.
This is episode 2. I'm Peter.
I'm Shay.
And you're listening to
Stellar Alignment,
where we finish each other's
sandwiches.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should we dig in?
Should we dig in?
And start from the beginning?
Yeah.
We've taken notes like we did on the first episode, and we'll kind of go through the movie chronologically and just touch on, I guess, our favorite parts.
Yeah.
Without like going too in depth and down rabbit holes.
Like maybe skipping
like we tend
through
to do.
some. Yeah. Let's stay with the rabbit holes.
But of course, you're a fan of the show and already know the structure. This is episode 2, after all.
After all. So, don't you know us?
Don't you know what this is all about?
Don't you know us?
It's not about space. And I've noticed while I was taking notes, side tangent, that a lot of what I do while I'm watching the movie taking notes is critique the movie.
Yeah, or poke holes in it.
Which says a lot about my personality.
That makes no sense. They can't hold them without charging them.
Yeah.
Why don't they know the charges?
Not like, isn't that a beautiful scene? And look at how they shot that. No, it's always like, why the fuck would they do this? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Let's just poke holes in this movie.
My first note was the back seat was too staged. Did you notice that? They're cruising down, listening to Deep in the South. Macchio throws a wrapper into the back of the convertible. Which, by the way, littering, that would have flown right out. That would have flown a convertible.
Right out.
Shame on you, Macchio. And there's like a
tilted pizza box.
There's a book that says The College Handbook right next to NYU sweatshirt. And it's like, it's too staged. But, I guess it's their way of saying, these are college kids.
They're college kids. They're a mess. Yeah. But, in a obvious way.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, no, I could see that.
It seemed fun.
It seemed fine.
Road trip's fun. We've gone on plenty of road trips ourselves, so appreciate...
Have we ever gone through Alabama?
We have. We've been through Alabama.
What?
Yeah. When we left Florida, we drove straight through Alabama.
But we didn't make any stops.
No, we didn't.
Not that there's anything wrong with Alabama.
Nothing wrong with Alabama. Plenty of fans down in Alabama. But did we do?
Sure.
That's what our analytics shows us. A lot of fans in Alabama.
We know plenty of people in Alabama.
Oh. Another thing that obviously showed that they were college students is how thrifty they were in the sack of
label.
Suds.
They're like, hey, is this?
They're
generic.
Do we get the 32-cent can of beans or the 31-cent can of beans? And
he's like, you're a sucker for marketing.
Elite Macchio wants to get the 32-cent can of beans.
Yeah.
It's like, we're not all karate kids. We don't
what?
What?
That's not what he said.
That's what I said.
Okay, I was like,
I just said
they did not reference Karate Kid in that movie. I'm sorry.
Obviously, they wouldn't reference another movie that Macchio was in. That would be super confusing. We know
you learned karate over the summer, kid.
Okay.
Sorry.
Back on track. But
back on track.
You know the problem that I had with him balancing all the cans in his hand and then putting the can of tuna in his jacket pocket
Yeah.
is his hands weren't that full.
No.
He used his hand to put it in his pocket.
One hole.
Why didn't he just hold it in his hand?
Why didn't he just hold it in his hand and used it to keep the pile on the rest of him?
Yeah.
Okay, but regardless, my first note is, why are they so paranoid about cops?
Oh, so this is after they've
This
already,
is after they've left. They
after
checked
he's
out.
realized that he stole the cup.
Stole a can.
So I said, why are they so paranoid about cops?
Hey.
Because of tuna? Exclamation point, question mark?
Yeah. Like, why are they so paranoid about the cops?
I don't know.
They're not doing any drugs. They're not high. They're just driving in a car, following the speed limit.
There's definitely
not doing anything.
I've been...
And the fucking passenger, Ralph Macchio's buddy, super paranoid.
Paranoid, yeah. I think because his friend is a little, neurotic maybe, and seems a little like high-strung, which we learn about a little further detail later, that he probably was just worried about the can of tuna.
So weird.
Very weird.
So weird. But he was all like, down here in the South. Like.
Very negative portrayal of the South.
The South, which isn't the case at all when you, see the other characters. They're all very respectable and nice.
Yeah,
and,
right. It's like a lot of times
not trying to throw the weight around or anything.
The folks in Hollywood look down on the South a lot of times and treat them like they're bumpkins, or it's like they're people too.
I think it was a jab at people who live in the big city, and being like, "Oh, they look down on everybody else." That's
possible.
Where they're like, "Oh, because you're from New York." My next note is a huge misunderstanding. Okay, so this is one of the holes that you were poking in during the movie. You actually had to pause the movie to complain about this.
This is something that I complain about with movies and television all the time, because it's actually one of my biggest pet peeves. In real life, you share information with people unless you want to keep a secret, but otherwise you're very open and you're communicative with people, so you all can be on the same page. But a lot of times in movies, and it happens with this one, they arrest them. Ralph Macchio is under the impression that they're being arrested for stealing a can of tuna, and they never once say anything about murder.
Nothing about murder.
And then end up getting booked for murder.
The end where he was like, murder. Yeah. And he was like, wait, I shot him?
I shot the clerk?
I shot the clerk? That has not been brought up once.
Also,
before then,
and
that's
something to take note. If you ever find yourself in this position, don't give out information so freely. This is America. You have the right to an attorney, and you don't have to say shit, even if you think you stole a can of tuna.
Okay, yeah, but
also,
I would actually say the opposite. I would give them all the information they needed about the can of tuna that I stole, because that's why I'm here. It's a can of tuna, right?
Both the cops
is elaborate for a can of tuna.
The cops and Macchio are very vague about what they're talking about the entire time. So it's very frustrating. Of course, without it, we would have no movie.
Exactly.
There would be no My Cousin Vinny. But it's super frustrating to listen to this conversation between these people. I said, why do they have giving information so freely? This would never work this way. You have to be made aware of the charges.
Yeah.
So if they're charging them with something, then they need to make them aware of the charges.
Murder charges.
He starts interrogating him, and he's not making him aware of charges, right?
Exactly.
I don't know, because I'm not a lawyer. This is all TV and movie.
We have no real experience.
And bird law.
I've never been
in
jail or gone through this ringer.
Never
so I have no idea.
Prison. So
or on a lineup, never been arrested. Oh, I would be so sad.
Yeah. I shot the clerk. That's
I shot the clerk?
Keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
If you get arrested.
I almost screamed at the TV. I was like, Ralph Macchio, you idiot.
And he's saying it with an upward inflection as a question.
But
I shot the clerk?
Sort of.
Wait, I shot the clerk?
He was trying to confirm it.
Yeah.
But he shouldn't have said that I shot the clerk.
When someone's transcribing that interrogation, they're not going to put a question mark in there because it's not a question. But they at least get their phone call.
Of course they do. Everything seems by the book. It feels like no one's trying to stack this against them. They just happen to fit literally the descriptions.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the vehicle. Like, I can totally understand why this was a case of mistaken identity.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like, no one who was doing their job at the police station was doing it wrong.
Right.
Except the lack of charges being told to them.
Yeah, everything was very vague. Yeah.
So when they were already in trouble, I don't know why I was expecting this early. You know, the title of the movie sometimes like shows up in the movie itself, and like when it does, you're like, ah,
they said it.
They said it. He said it. My cousin Vinny. So his Macchio's friend was like, "Do you know any great attorneys?" Macchio's like, "No," and I was like, "Oh, I thought he was gonna say My Cousin Vinny."
Right. But then
a fake out.
He calls his mom, and
then he's like, "No, I'm calling my mom."
Yeah,
exactly.
That's right. And she recommends his cousin Vinny.
Exactly.
And then he said, "Then you got what you were hoping for."
Yeah.
Right?
So it was. I got faked out for a second, and then he said, "My cousin Vinny."
That must have been very satisfying for you.
A little bit, yeah.
Vinny Bag of Donuts, also, by the way.
Yeah. What is that from?
Vinny Bag of Donuts.
Mean?
So
Vinny Bag of Donuts.
You know what that made me think of is
Joey Bag of Donuts.
Joey Bag of Donuts. Which is from the comedian Mike Birbiglia.
Oh.
As a very funny joke about somebody mistaking him for being this guy Joey Bag of Donuts, but he just goes along with it, and and
everybody loves him.
Hilarity ensues. I'm not going to explain the whole joke to you because that tends to ruin jokes, but Mike Birbiglia, Joey Bag of Donuts. Check it out if you get a chance.
Hilarious.
That made me think of this. I was like, wow, Vinny Bag of Donuts. All right.
Yeah. So
how do you get that nickname?
How do you get that nickname? Is that code for something?
Do you eat a whole bag of donuts?
Maybe it has nothing to do with donuts.
Are you
something else?
Are you
maybe it's code
friendly?
For something else? I have no idea.
Maybe you're friendly and you always bring a bag of donuts and share with people, so people rely on you.
Well, that would be like the sweetest
storyline. Brings donuts every time.
Vinny Bag of Donuts.
He's a nice guy to have around. He always has donuts.
That would be a nice.
Or is it something that we're not even thinking of?
I think it's something
some sort of like low life reference.
No.
I love that he's just like, my cousin Vinny, and then the next thing you know, Joe Pesci's rolling into town in his beat up Buick.
Yeah, super beat up.
Yeah.
He's like blasting music and like heads are turning. And it just seems like
some
very out of place type of scene.
Some sort of early 90s hip hop that I've never heard of. Doesn't mean much, but what is this? And would this character really be listening to this music? I doubt it, but maybe Marisa Tomei picked the music.
Maybe.
Yeah. Mona Lisa, Vito.
Yeah, she could have installed the speakers.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when that was a thing, where the speakers are bigger than like your trunk of your car.
That was still a thing when I was a kid. Yeah. Got my first car. All my friends would put like put like this giant subwoofer in the trunk, and then you have no trunk space, and it makes like everything vibrate. You can't freaking hear anything.
You can't think.
That was a huge thing.
It annoys people. It shakes windows as you drive by.
Yeah, it was a huge thing where I was from.
Ugh, I was born old.
I guess.
Turn it down!
Turn that racket down, Sonny.
The next thing that I have is when Pesci arrives and he goes to the cell.
Yes.
And there's another huge misunderstanding.
So another misunderstanding. Just before that, though, I have that he tips the corrections officer. Which I thought
that's super sketchy.
Was a really good touch. And
I feel like tipping the corrections officer gave that impression that it was under the table. That he was not officially supposed to be there, sort of thing. Point. And maybe that's why Macchio's friend... who's this actor? I'm so sorry to call him
Macchio's friend. Is Mitchell Whitfield. We can call them by the names of the characters.
No, I'm going to call him Macchio's friend.
Which is Bill and Stan.
Which one is Bill and which one is Stan?
Bill was Macchio's character. And Stan is Mitchell Whitfield.
Stan.
the next misunderstanding happens.
Yeah.
Because prior to this scene, Macchio was, telling his friend about what happens in prison, which,
of course,
his
is biggest fear that he's been thinking about and like running in his mind over and over again
is some man-on-man prison rape.
Yep.
Which happens.
He was a little worried.
Understandably.
So of course,
Understandably.
the first time he has a visit to the cell and gets the fact that Vinny gets locked in with them, it seems strange, but maybe not.
There's a lot of these that happen in the movie. I don't know because we've never been in a situation like this. But
it is overflow from the jail to the prison,
which
right?
they mentioned, right?
So I feel like this whole section is a little more casual, which makes me think like, oh, I can suspend my disbelief instead of going to like some interrogation room or a visitor waiting room with the actual prisoners. They can just go to these cells,
right?
So maybe that's something.
Possibly. Maybe they don't have a proper room for them to meet with their lawyer or whatever.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
This is why when he shows up, and to your point about tipping the corrections officer, it seems like this is just some other prisoner who's managed to pay off the CO to get into the cell so he could have his way with Stan and Bill.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of misunderstandings and a bunch of things that are said that totally innuendos. Like, I loved it.
This movie is full of misunderstandings. Why does Stan think Vinny is there to rape him? I guess maybe it's the tipping. I didn't think about that. That's a good point.
It could be the tipping because it
seems
just
like that he tipped. I was like, that was classy, and that makes a little more sense.
That was pretty classy. Classy of him, because even the guard seemed a little confused. He's like, "Oh, okay." Yeah.
My favorite, though, of course, there's a lot of innuendo, right, where they're talking to each other and no one's actually saying what's going on. He's not telling him, "I'm Vinny, your lawyer, your friend's cousin." He's not saying, "Please don't rape me." He's just saying, "I don't want this to happen. I don't want to do this." And
I don't want any of this to happen.
And my favorite one is that one of the lines Pesci says is, "I'd not come down here just to get jerked off."
Yeah.
Which obviously makes sense. If you're going to pay off a CO and go through all of the hassle to get into the cell, you don't want just a handy. Of
course not. Who wants a handy?
You want a little more.
Our parents are watching, maybe.
Well, they're just going to have to deal with it. This was an R-rated film.
This was an R-rated
This is an R-rated podcast.
I have a note that just says breakfast.
Breakfast.
Oh, the menus at the diner.
Yes. Yeah, I made a note here that it gave me Schitt's Creek vibe. Ooh. Because of the way that they were dressed walking into this small, like...
Yeah, the whole, like,
town,
black
like, small town
and white
diner
kind of thing.
Yeah. And then they order off the menu, which has three menu items. Menu. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that breakfast was $1.99.
That's amazing.
Lunch was $2.49, and I think dinner was $2.99.
Wow, I would eat there every day.
Is that really, is inflation really that bad 31 years later?
Or, yeah.
Or is it just cheap because it was a cheap diner in a small town? I don't know.
Small town?
But man... It looked like a hearty breakfast, too.
Yeah, it was 2 eggs.
Grits.
And
toast, and grits.
Toast.
Yeah, and of course
was there any meat? No, it was toast. Toast or bacon?
Just the eggs, I think.
Okay.
Not that important. What they had we're going to deep dive way down into all of these movies. We're going to explore what the actors eat in every scene.
If it's real food.
We're going to nitpick everything.
No, we're not.
So if you got 6 hours on your hands, stay tuned.
It's gonna be exciting.
As an upstate New Yorker, I had only ever heard of grits until I went to the South. We lived in Florida.
Yep.
There were places where we would go eat that served grits.
That's also where I learned it.
It is a Southern thing, so definitely understandable that Vinny doesn't know what grits are. He asks what they are. And the guy's response is, "You never heard of grits?" He said, "Grits, sure, I've heard of grits. I've just never actually seen a grit," which I have down here. I thought that was pretty funny.
That is funny. When was the first time you ever tried grits?
I probably tried grits at some point traveling to Florida as a kid, I imagine.
Okay.
But I really don't remember.
The first time I ever had grits was in LA, actually.
You
And like
didn't
there's this
try
little
grits at all
buffet
when
at
we
this
lived
bar.
in Florida?
No. But the grits that I had were super good. But
LA
they only
grits,
tasted like butter. It was amazing.
Not the same.
Butter. It was
Am I
just
right,
butter
Alabama?
and like chunks of cheese stuck in it. I don't know if that's how you're supposed to eat it, but it was really good. It was like mac and cheese without anything to chew.
Any self-respecting Southerner doesn't put cheese in their grits.
Really?
I don't know if that's true, but we do know from this movie that any self-respecting Southerner doesn't use instant grits.
That's what
right.
we heard.
And that is also a pretty large plot point.
Because how long does it take to boil grits?
15 to 20 minutes.
15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah. Which the diner owner. A piece of information that he was able to give Vinny early on. So Vinny learned how long grits took, which seems insignificant until later. He goes to court.
Yeah.
For the arraignment. The judge poo-poos his New York outfit.
Mm-hmm. Poo-poos his whole mannerisms, really. Like.
Yeah. Which I think we can now flip around and say we've got the writers having people from the South shitting on people from the North. Also kind of another cliche. I have a note here that says suit and ties have integrity. Because he poo-poos over his New York outfit.
His giant leather jacket.
His leather jacket.
His stylized belt that he wears like that.
He folds. I remember when you used to fold the end of your belt into your belt.
It's still kind of cool. No. Nah, it's still...
Your belt shouldn't be long enough where you fold it back in.
People still do
That's still a thing. Then I am out of style.
I'm sorry, baby.
I have a note here that says, why is Vinny such a schmuck? Like...
What does a schmuck mean?
He doesn't realize that... Like, he knows that he's a fish out of water because he's in the South, right? Mm. And that's why he attempts with the horrible cowboy boots that he wears, which they mention early on. But why is he have his feet up on the judge's desk? Like, who does that?
Who does that?
Why is he just like, what's wrong with the way I'm dressed?
I feel like he wasn't wearing anything professional.
You would have to wear a suit and tie in New York as a lawyer.
This is true. Yeah, like, definitely you would have to dress up for the job that you're doing. But he also kind of goes into his history later, where he is telling the story about how he talked himself, like, out of a parking ticket of his own, and the judge taking an interest in him. And being like, hey, go do this, You
should be a litigator.
Exactly. You'd be a good litigator.
I didn't know what a litigator was. That was my best Joe Pesci insult I got.
Nice. But, in fact, when he got notes back from this judge in the South, I feel like he was very earnest in like, oh, okay, yes.
Yeah. Like, I mean, he didn't change the outfit right away. He thought he was joking, which got him a charge of contempt.
I felt like he had the right sort of, like, respect. For people in authority. And I'm like gung-ho authority here. I'm so sorry.
And I think that's why Bill, Ralph Macchio's character, continues to defend him against his friend Stan, who Stan right away is like, this guy's no good. He's not going to be good for us. But I think it's because he does have something that, we can get into when we get there. But he has something that not everybody has. And that's why this judge told him he should become a litigator.
He's good at arguing.
Yeah, good at arguing.
Right? That's what the Macchio goes into.
He mentions
how
that
famous
early on that the Gambinis
argue on another level.
Born arguers.
Exactly.
Yeah. I have a note here that says, you saying you got stiffed, where the gentleman... plays pool against Marisa Tomei. She's trying to win $200 to bail Pesci out for his first charge of contempt.
Yeah.
And he stiffs her. I love that he immediately is like, let's go confront this guy in a bar in Alabama full of other locals where it's just me and my fiance, who's like an inch taller than me. Standing at 5'3", Joe Pesci, he's like the quintessential tough guy of the 90s.
Yep.
Joe Pesci. Like it's the confidence, and then also just the look and the voice and the way he's able to talk to people that really does make you think like,
oh yeah, what is he got
it's almost
hiding
like,
under the hood?
What is he capable of?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. He's so much confidence, and it seems almost like he's so slick and charming.
Yeah.
Just with his words, that he like backs this guy into this weird logic corner where he's like, "Oh, I need $200 in order to fight this guy."
Yeah. Yeah. So, $200, I'm gonna kick your ass, and I love it. Joe Pesci says, "I could use a good ass kicking. I got to be honest with you." And he said, "You know what? No, I'm going to go for the $200."
And his buddies laugh.
Yeah.
His
buddies laugh
the
about
bar
it.
buddies
like, so you're
laugh
saying
about it.
I have two options. You're going to kick my ass, or if I kick your ass, you'll give me the $200.
Yeah.
And he says, "I'm going to go for option B," right? Mm-hmm. But then, of course, the guy doesn't have the money on him. He says, I can get it. So Joe Pesci says, "Okay, well, I'm not gonna," which is smart because probably shouldn't try to kick his ass with all his buddies around anyway.
Yeah, like that situation, you probably shouldn't be fighting, and that's probably why he used his words so well.
Yeah.
Like he just charmed everyone with his wit and humor in that bar, and it wasn't even about the fight anymore. It was about how can I like own this guy.
Ultimately, what happens is, it comes up a few times throughout the movie. We can just cover it right now, but the guy is like, "Hey, Yankee, I got your money," and
he's got this fat roll. This is the first time we see him again.
And of course, Pesci or Vinny being smart says, "How do I know that's just not a 20 wrapped around a bunch of ones?"
Which it is, and he can't disprove, and therefore diffuses the fight.
Right, so it's like, we're not going to fight yet, get the whole $200. But the issue I had here, again, is it's this fat roll of money. $200 is 10 20s. What's the redneck's deal with the $200? Can he not get $200 together? Okay, he didn't have it on him in the bar, but like the second time when he's like,
he didn't even have it.
There's a roll of ones around it with a 20 around it.
Yeah, like what is his deal? You can't get $200?
$200.
That's hard for you?
Go to the bank.
Maybe it's hard.
What was $200 in 1990?
Maybe he lives with his mom, and his mom doesn't want to give him $200 because he just was going to spend it at the bar and with his friends. Maybe he lives at home and can't support himself. Maybe $200 is really hard for him to get. Maybe he's just a dum-dum and he can't save $200 for a fight that he wants to lose.
Maybe. When he actually does end up fighting him, he doesn't even fight him. He just jumps at him with his whole body. He like takes him down,
power punches,
steals the money from him, and then
he's
it's
down.
over.
He's down for the count.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah.
And the guy, it's not very satisfying to be honest.
And then he was laying on the ground and was like,
"Oh, yeah, it's fine."
Yeah, that's my favorite. I love it when people lay on the ground and they're like, "I can't do anything."
That's weird.
Sorry.
How could you be so sure?
That's what I got.
The first time it comes up, because the faucet's leaking. This is right after Macchio mentions that the Gambinis are born to argue, and they cut to a scene in the hotel room where the faucet is leaking, and he tells Lisa, it's like, "Well, why is the faucet leaking?" She's, "I don't know." It's like, "Well, weren't you the last one to use it?" "Yeah." He's like, "Well, maybe you didn't turn it off well enough." And she's like, "I turned it off well enough." And it turns into this theoretical debate where she pulls in some bogus statistics about the torque it takes to turn a faucet off. And this is where we hear the first, "How can you be so sure?"
How can you be so sure?
Yeah, which comes up a couple times throughout the movie. House and building with bricks metaphor, solid, but you still need to know law. That's what I have next. So, Ralph Macchio's on the fence because Vinny is not proving to be a very effective trial lawyer. He does not know what he's doing. He keeps telling Lisa that he'll learn it as he goes,
That's not how you
But
do
that's
law,
not how you
right?
do lawyering. And his friend Stan gets the public defender, and Ralph Macchio's character, decides that he's going to do the same. And Joe Pesci, for whatever reason,
Talks him into it.
carries a deck of cards with him at all times.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
he
Who
uses
wouldn't?
this brick house building and brick metaphor, which I felt like was pretty effective. You know,
I
like,
thought it was good.
this bricks. You need nice bricks to build a house.
He's gonna
He's
show
gonna
you these
show you
bricks.
the bricks. But the problem is he's only
The
going to
right
show you them
angles.
from one
They
side.
look like bricks.
They look like good bricks, but if you turn them sideways, they're as thin as this card. And then he flips it around, and it's the Joker when it started off to be
He
a different
convinced
card.
his cousin to
He
keep
convinced
believing him.
but it's more of just being able to talk your way out of things with logic and rationale, and
That's
being charming, like you mentioned before. But that's not how the law works.
That's true. But
you still need to know the law.
he needs to know the law. But what makes him a good litigator or person who argues in the court is he can be charming. You need to charm basically your audience of peers, right? Who are judging you.
Yes.
You need to convince them what the right answer is.
Right.
And by using your logic.
It works for the purposes of this movie, and you know, spoiler alert, we know that he ends up winning the case in the end.
Oh, did you not know that?
But I would hope that you'd have watched the movie before listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
But hey, it's, you know, it's your time.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like, again, this is a lot of Hollywood trial sequencing, and the questions and the way that everything happens in the movie is nothing like it would actually happen in real life. So the judge he even tells him, he first pulls him aside, I'm a stickler for a procedure, and we get a lot of Hollywood procedure.
Mm-hmm. Probably, yeah.
Except for like the very first day he was in court.
My next note is actually the lack of sleep throughout the movie is pretty funny.
Yeah.
So how many times did he not sleep?
Right.
Let's see. The first place they were at, that whistle.
There was a whistle. Yeah. This I have in here is like maybe a little ways down, but you know, who keeps building these hotels and motels next to like the mill where a whistle goes off at 4 in the morning, or next to the train station,
a slaughterhouse next door, and
Right.
they're like importing pigs at 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, right next to the railroad station that comes in at 10 after 4.
Who keeps building these hotels?
Ridiculous hotels.
The next scene after the slaughterhouse scene, if I'm not mistaken, is when the judge pulls Vinny aside and says that New York has never heard of a lawyer named Vincent LaGuardia Gambino, or that he's never practiced law. Because he is a lawyer, but he hasn't gone to trial.
Mm-hmm.
So the judge wants to make sure that he doesn't have just any old lawyer off the street in his courtroom, even though he is a lawyer.
And it makes no sense why this is important. It doesn't make any sense.
A lot of times, the judge's main job is to make sure that the trial goes according to the law. So one of the things that he's probably watching out for is to make sure that these defendants who are accused of murder have a lawyer that can properly
their other
represent
choice,
them.
though, let's think about their other choice, which was a public defender from the public defender's office, who had a mad stuttering when he was doing any public speaking, including interrogating the witnesses on the stand, or even the opening statement. Like, that's what he was compared to.
But he's probably done, I don't know.
It seemed like a weird detail for me. Anyway.
It was a weird detail, but I think it's because it's a main point of the part of the plot is that
he doesn't want to get found out.
Yeah, and I mean at the end of the movie, which we can dive into when we get there, is that he needs to hurry up and finish the trial because
wrap it up in 90 minutes.
The judge is kind of onto him. But he finds out that he's not hasn't practiced law. He confronts him about it, and Vinny lies and says that he used to be an actor, so in order to In order to practice law,
exactly.
he changed his name to
his stage name. He legally changed his name to his stage name.
Jerry Gallo.
Jerry Gallo.
Which, at this point in the movie, he is very animated and says, Jerry Gallo, and knocks the judge's chess pieces off of the board. And according to IMDb, that was a mistake, that Joe Pesci wasn't supposed to knock those pieces off the board.
You felt like it was
I disagree. It feels too much like acting to me. So I don't know if maybe Joe Pesci pretended that it was a mistake.
I think
but it wasn't
mistake.
Actually in the script, but he did it anyways to add to the scene.
I think it was a mistake. And what I think was they loved it. So they did a couple extra additional shots with that happening. Possibly. You know, like from the other angle where he's like, you can call me Gambini. You know, like when he comes up and like he still has all his hands on the chess set. Like, yeah. I think maybe it was initially wrong and they kept it in and then did additional shots because they're like, oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, of course he would mess up this chess game. But why was it right there? What's happening?
He was playing chess against himself when he came into the office. Yeah. That's why it was right there. That's always a key indicator that you're someone who's extremely intelligent in movies. Yeah. Ever notice that? There's whenever you're someone that plays chess against yourself, you must be very smart. Oh, so they use that a lot in movies.
That makes sense.
You'll notice it from now on.
Chess is hard.
That's a little tip that you can take home with you, folks. Then he goes hunting.
Yeah. He goes hunting.
He goes hunting with the prosecutor. And this is where he says that God, I wish I could just get a look at his files. If I could just know what he knows.
Yeah. Which is a thing.
Which is actually the law. You do have to be given all of the information. It's called disclosure. Vinny doesn't know this. So he goes hunting to try and, charm him to get some information.
Which he probably could have.
And basically the lawyer, when he said, man, I wish I could get a look at your files, the lawyer's like, fine, I'll just send him over to your office.
Yeah, do you have a Xerox machine?
He comes
I'll have my secretary
back very happy, right? That's when Marisa Tomei gives him a little bit of
some law knowledge because she's been reading that book.
Reading a law book, which he asked her not to. She's been wanting to
help the whole time.
Yeah.
And I can understand.
He doesn't want her to.
Why is that? Maybe it's an insecurity that he feels like if he can't do it, like he's the one that studied for this.
He definitely wants. He's definitely the type of person that wants to do it on his own, but also feel like no, you shouldn't be doing this. This is my thing. She knows a lot about cars. When they roll into town, there's a ton of mud on the car because they're in the South in Alabama and. They get mud, apparently. They said that they are known for their mud.
I guess so.
And they've got a weird sound in the car. And when they take a look at it, a local comes by and says, you got mud in your tires. And they said, how can you possibly get mud in your tires? He's like, oh, it's just a figure of speech. It's just on the inside of the rim. And she says, I've never heard anything like that. And the guy kind of turns his nose up at her like, well, what would you know? Because you're just a woman. Yeah.
Whatever, dude.
Yeah, whatever, dude. After the hunting scene, the prosecutor
loans out the cabin,
and that's when we see Marisa Tomei in the flower jumpsuit.
Oh, you wrote a note about her jumpsuit?
Did you not have that on your notes?
No, but I did love it. It was pretty cool.
It's just an interesting jumpsuit. Sure. I just made a note of it there. Of course. But she's getting very frustrated because she can't help him.
Yes, and she wants him to win because...
She wants to get married.
Because not to throw any more pressure on the fire.
They're engaged.
But this is
the stipulation. He said that they would get married...
after he won his first trial.
And he hasn't done that yet.
Yeah. In fact, he hasn't done any trials
yet.
And
she said her biological clock is ticking. And kind of throws a fit. And I had a note here. He sees her outrage and raises her to shut her up.
Yep. And then when she's like, oh, I'm sorry for, backpedals and, I'm sorry for putting extra pressure on you, he, smirks to himself. He knew
exactly what to say.
That would finish the argument and that he would win because of that.
Gambini's born to argue. Born
to argue. Born to argue. That's fair. Finally, they get this cabin. They're like, hey, the prosecutor sleeps out there sometimes. He sleeps like a baby. It's in the middle of nowhere. So they go out there and they fall asleep, except there's a screech owl outside. Yeah. I don't know if this is the actual type of owl. I'm just calling it a screech owl because I know that term from Harry Potter.
So they choose to sleep in the car, and I could be wrong, but it looks like just in the background of where the car is, the cabin.
Yeah.
So you would still be able to hear
all the same animals.
But this is an important plot point because they sleep in the car. When he gets out in the morning after it had rained all night while they were in the car, he slips in the mud.
When he slips in the mud, and his stunt double, I got like a lot of Home Alone vibes from that.
Yeah.
Super Home Alone vibes. Of course he would do that. Like, feet
it's
overhead.
Probably the same stunt double.
I wonder. Do you wonder? I hope it is. Anyway.
He then has to go in the trunk because...
he needs to dig the tires out of the
mud.
They're
stuck in the mud. And he accidentally drops his suit on the ground, which she had just had dry cleaned.
Yes.
There's nowhere to get a new suit because the suit store's closed due to flu.
Yep, the only suit store in town.
Right. He has to pick up a ridiculous suit at the secondhand store, which the judge holds him in contempt for, yet again, for making a mockery of the court. He holds him in contempt, and I don't know if it's because of just the suit, because of his attitude, because he says, what are you wearing? And he tells him the whole story of why he's wearing this. He's like, so I'm wearing this ridiculous suit for you. The judge says, something like he's unhappy. And Vinny kind of whispers, not so much under his breath, that's a fucking surprise.
Yeah.
And the judge says, what did you just say? And then Vinny pauses. What did I say? What? And then
because he's just so tired.
The judge has the best confused look on his face ever. Like, confused, embarrassed, and the facial reaction that Fred Gwynne gives is just spot on. Fred Gwynne being, as far as I know, because I don't know a lot of older stuff, but most famously played Herman Munster on the television show The Munsters, which I did watch reruns of as a kid.
That is cool.
And sadly, this was his last role. Yeah, he died shortly after the movie came out.
Oh.
After filming. Yep.
He's good.
Yeah.
He's good.
Very good.
Oh, that makes me
He played a good... I had another note in here. He plays a good Southern judge.
He does. His character itself, wasn't offensive or corrupt.
So I do think that you have a point. There's no malicious characters.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of misunderstanding.
Tons of misunderstanding.
And
coincidences.
Lack of information and coincidences. The prosecutor is doing his opening statement. Next, Vinny gets up and said, he was asleep, but he gets up and says...
I have a note about the second lawyer, too.
Yeah, whatever that guy just said is bullshit.
It's bullshit.
Thank you. And then the judge strikes all of that except for thank you from the record.
He gets in trouble again. Bad language.
But the public defender gets up next. Mm-hmm. And what's funny is we're still in opening statements, but we're almost 3/4 of the way through the movie.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a lot of build up to the trial, and then the actual trial is pretty short. Public defender gets up. I think that it was probably funnier 30 years ago. Right?
Because he has a stutter?
Because
speech impediment?
Obviously, the actor doesn't have a stutter. Some people get nervous in public speaking situations.
Yeah.
And people that have stutters might not have a stutter when they're just talking one-on-one.
Totally.
In comfortable situations. But when they're put in situations like this...
with high pressure.
The stutter can come back, right?
Public speaking.
But it's definitely a joke in the movie.
It is a joke,
and they make a joke out of it.
He shouldn't be doing this if that's his problem.
Yeah, because he even mentions to Stan...
He's like, I've been getting better. I'm better.
Yeah, he mentions to Stan that he gets nervous in public doing public speaking. When he does get through the stutter and actually gets the word out, he's so pleased with himself. When he actually gets the word out. And he was so sweaty. Did you notice that?
He was pretty sweaty the whole time. He was very nervous.
Yeah. Pesci gets up to cross-examine the first witness and asks him about the two youths.
Youths.
Two what?
Two what? Youths.
Sorry, Your Honor. Two youths.
Youths.
And then I love that he changed it and said the two defendants.
Yeah.
I saw a little bit of trivia on IMDb, and we take this with a grain of salt because IMDb is just like Wikipedia. Anybody can go in there and, well, not anybody, specific things you can go in and add stuff. So trivia is one of those things where I think any user can go in and add it. That's why I kind of am on the fence about the chess piece scene, but this one says, misunderstanding between Vincent Gambini and Judge Heller regarding the two youths was in fact a real conversation between Pesci and director Jonathan Lynn. Lynn, who is British, at first had a hard time understanding Pesci's pronunciation and decided that the routine was quite funny and put it in the film. He cross-examines the first eyewitness who saw the two defendants enter and then claims to see them leave, but when he sees them leave, he just sees the back of their heads.
Yes.
And also says that it only took about 5 minutes.
But this is where our grits knowledge comes into play.
The whole conversation about grits comes back
The whole
around.
conversation about grits. From the diner, he knows that it takes 15-20 minutes for grits to cook properly, and since no self-respecting Southerner
uses instant grits. Mm-hmm.
He wasn't on the hook for 5 minutes, so it must have been longer. And he kind of like backpedals a little.
Backtreadles.
He backtrots.
Backtrots.
He backpedals just a little bit. So there's obviously reasonable doubt here.
And then, the witness admits that he could have been wrong about the timing.
Exactly.
Which means that his statement is not credible. So this is the first time that Vinny actually shows that Gambini's worth. And this is when Stan decides to ditch his stuttering public defender and take Vinny back on. Mm-hmm. He actually has his first small win for the trial and shows that he might actually know what he's doing. He might actually win this thing. We go on to the next eyewitness, who also witnessed them coming and going, but just briefly for a couple seconds. And turns out he's not a very good housekeeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what he witnessed was through, layers of dirt.
Yeah. So Vinny lays out pictures.
Exactly. Vinny has been able to talk to all the witnesses at their homes. He lays out a bunch of pictures of the film and dirt over the window, whatever the screen was covered in, the trees that actually block his view.
What are these big
from
things?
The parking lot?
These big things out here. What do you call those?
Trees.
Trees?
And he seems like proud that he was like,
trees? And then
trees? Am I getting these answers?
Just go ahead and shout it out whenever you get it. What is all these things that are on the trees? What do you call those? Leaves? Yeah. And I love it. The last one, he's like, "What are these bushy things in front of the store here? Bushes?"
Yeah. Good. Good.
Just
one.
like
Good
I don't know.
one.
It's the sarcasm that really tickles me because
you're pretty sarcastic.
I grew up with that.
You're pretty sarcastic.
Love it. Not me. We go on to the last eyewitness, which is a little old lady who
wears super thick glasses.
Right, yeah.
Saw them from 100 feet away. 100 feet away.
And Vinny just shoots a hole right in that too.
He takes a little measuring tape, runs to the back of the courtroom. It's 50 feet, so it's half that distance. Holds his hand up, which
and then,
is
of
the
course,
funny part. The judge
is like, let the record show that Mr. Gambini is holding up 2 fingers. and he's like, Judge, come on, huh?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. He looks super embarrassed.
Yeah.
His facial. I'm sorry. I'm going to go back to this, but the judge's facial expressions,
pretty great.
Fred Gwynne's facial expressions throughout the movie are just amazing. And turns out that she can't see worth a shit, even with her glasses on.
Yep. So, so far, he has poked holes in all three
eyewitnesses. Yeah, they have no murder weapon. They don't have they have really no other evidence other than the eyewitnesses.
Exactly. And I thought that was
which is actually a pretty weak case, I think. We have a whole night go by.
Yeah.
Vinny's riding high because he's poked holes in all three eyewitnesses. Yeah. But the prosecutor calls him and says that he's got a bombshell.
He's got a bombshell.
And
evidence is being submitted the next morning.
Evidence that the tires could only be the specific tires that happen to be on the car.
Mm-hmm. This is revealed the next day at court. And
Vinny asks for a continuance to look at this information. The judge does not give it to him. This is the point where the judge pulls Vinny aside again and says, "I called New York." And it turns out Jerry Gallo's dead, yep. which Lisa tells him earlier on in the movie, which we didn't mention.
Marisa Tomei tells him.
Yeah, that Jerry Gallo, the famous lawyer in New York, died. And this is where Vinny again is like, wait, Jerry Gallo's dead. And the judge is like, I know. And he says, I didn't say Jerry Gallo. I said Jerry Callo with a C.
Callo.
The judge is super smart, but he keeps falling for Vinny's BS. The judge calls New York right away, and he can't get it through right away, but says that they're going to call back.
After 3.
There better be a Jerry Callo, or you better win this case in 90 minutes. Right? Mm-hmm. They break for lunch. Lisa comes in with pictures that she's taken of their trip.
Yeah.
And Vinny kind of loses it on her a little bit.
A little bit.
He's in the zone. He's thinking about the trial.
Yes. She just wants to help, and he lashes out, super sarcastic.
I think
She's having none of it.
I actually think it's super funny.
Of course.
When he looks at the pictures and he's like, "What is this? Oh, this is a picture of me from the back. As if I couldn't feel any worse right now." And then she shows him the pictures, and one of them you can see is a picture of tire tracks.
And he's like, "What is this? Get farther away?"
He's like, "What is that? Dog shit. That's dog shit. It's a picture of dog shit."
Oh, so this one is gonna win us the case.
The picture of me in
the shower.
And she gets very upset with him.
Yeah, of course. I would too.
And she storms off, which is understandable, and leaves the pictures with him.
Yeah.
We go back to the courtroom, and he's telling the boys, it's not looking good. And just in that moment...
Yeah, he has, a little thing to say about the tires. It is the most popular tire out there. He
cross-examines the prosecutor's expert on the tires, and
exactly. So it is the tires.
It is the most popular tire brand out there, but that doesn't prove that anything.
That doesn't prove anything.
It just means it could be on other cars. It was on their car. Mm-hmm. But then he goes back and sees the picture that Lisa took of the tire tracks, and something clicks that we're not sure of yet.
We're not sure of, and
he is sure, though.
I'm surprised he caught it, too.
Well, he knows because they do mention earlier in the movie that he also worked for her father as a mechanic.
Okay.
So he was also a mechanic.
Okay.
So he knows a lot about cars, too.
Okay. That's fair.
And he knows immediately because he hands the note to the sheriff with the make and model. He knows what car it is also.
Exactly what it is. So,
but he can't question himself. He brings in Mona Lisa Vito, his fiance. Mm-hmm. She's not happy, bringing her in as a witness and as an expert. This is where I feel like the sexism comes in a little more, because at first the judge isn't quite sure, and the prosecutor's very unsure about her credibility as a woman, knowing anything about mechanics and cars.
Yes.
So
I think but he did ask what her profession was, and she was out of work hairdresser, which also is not a credit towards how much you know about cars.
She's upset with
and she doesn't
Vinny,
really want to.
She doesn't want to help him. She doesn't want to be there. The prosecutor questions her and finds out that she does know her stuff. In fact, he tries to stump her with a trick question, which I don't even think he realized was a trick question. I think he just didn't know his shit. And she's like, "No, you're wrong. That's a trick question." Mm-hmm. So Vinny is able to get her to look at the picture, and she's questioning her, and she doesn't want to talk to Vinny. And the judge says, "Do the two of you know each other?" And he says, "She's my fiance." And I love another look from Fred Gwynne here where he says, well, that certainly explains the hostility.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Does this thing with his face, which is pretty funny. While he's questioning her, she says, this one line is way over the top for me. Obviously, the Academy thought it was Oscar worthy. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to take anything away from Marisa Tomei here. But of course. He asks her if about the defense and what they're trying to prove with the tires. And she says, no, the defense is wrong. And it's just so over the top.
Yeah.
But then we get another, are you sure?
How can you be so sure?
Yeah. Which is good.
That is a good one.
She realizes,
like on the stand,
this could only be one car.
Exactly.
And then she goes through a whole bunch of car stuff, which I'm not going to repeat.
I also don't
I know nothing about cars.
What is she even saying?
Yeah. And then, of course, that kind of seals the deal there.
Yeah. So the prosecutor calls it after that. But how does he call it? Do you remember?
Well, he says,
the state would like to drop all the charges, sir.
State would like to drop all the charges. And he's all
leaned over his
and I have a note, like, even the defense is happy to drop charges after being made to look so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, which doesn't make sense, but it's fine. They're very happy.
I feel like Pesci has charmed everyone in the courtroom.
Yeah.
The jury, all the audience behind them, and the prosecution, and the judge.
Yeah.
So that by the end of it, they're all, like, including the sheriff who was there, who went out and like did a bunch of work for them.
Which speaks to what we were saying before about
how they're good people.
No one being malicious. Like,
no one being malicious.
They're not trying to pin anything on these kids. It's just a misunderstanding.
Exactly.
Which isn't really the case with a lot of these types of movies where you've got someone which is an outsider who rolls through town and gets arrested and is wrongfully accused of something. It's usually the way the plot turns out is, like, there's someone trying to pin it on them.
Exactly.
You know, and
someone
it's just
who's only worried about like their numbers, or like, let's fucking wrap this case up so no one panics.
Yeah.
Like,
or it's a race thing a lot of the times, especially if it's a movie in the South.
Or if there's...
It is. Have you ever seen the movie Life?
No.
With Eddie Murphy and
Martin Lawrence.
Yeah.
Ah, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were just upstanding people. They want to put away murderers. They didn't want to put away two random people, two random kids going to college. So like it is a really good feel-good movie, how everyone kind of wins and they're let off.
The last thing that I have to say, though, about this, because this is pretty much they wrap it up like, oh, the case is thrown out, they want to drop all the charges. We know that there was a timetable because the judge is on to Vinny, which is a kind of a weird side story in the movie, which is fine. But so he's like in a rush to get out of there before the judge gets this information from New York, and we come to find out that Marisa Tomei called into the judge. That took an interest in Mallory. Took an interest in him and talked him into becoming a lawyer in the first place, and was able to fake Jerry Callow's law record. He has trouble getting to the car because everyone wants to thank him. Stan wants to thank him. Of course, his cousin Ralph Macchio wants to thank him.
Of course.
The prosecutor, says you're always welcome here. And the sheriff, everyone, loves Vinny now. Yeah. And by the time all this happens, the judge catches up with him. But we find out that the judge is like, oh, turns out you're an amazing lawyer. I shouldn't have doubted you or whatever.
Yeah.
But then they still get in the car and take the fuck off back to New York. There's no reason for them to leave immediately anymore. I have a problem here with this because...
It's always good to...
Your cousin was just wrongfully accused of murder, and you got him off. You're not going to stick around and celebrate a win? You're just going to be like, hey, I'll talk to you later. Back to New York I go. Like, what is that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I wonder if they're like close enough, or like, it's just the way it ended. I'm sorry you felt that it was a little like...
Just another critique that I have of the
unfinished.
Of movies. We talked about some of the quotes throughout the episode, but What do you think your top?
How can you be so
How
sure?
can you be so sure? My favorite quote is, "The defense are wrong."
No!
No, that's not my favorite. That's my least favorite quote.
No.
It's cringy. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Otherwise, she's amazing.
Otherwise, she's
and
amazing.
Can't take my eyes off her. But that specific quote just doesn't do it for me.
Silly.
It's up in the air for me. We like to quote, "How can you be so sure?" all the time, but I also think that "two Utes" is pretty funny.
That is a pretty funny
Two
one.
what?
Or two what?
Two what?
Two Utes.
Which I think is hilarious that the judge is not making fun of him. He's like, "What are you saying? Two Utes?" And then he's putting the H sound when he says what? What?
I love that there's
What?
some like communication
Cool whip.
problems.
You can't have pie without Cool Whip.
Cool whip.
Why are you saying it like that? We've got a little bit of movie trivia. We touched on a few things already. Director Jonathan Lynn actually has a law degree and insisted the film's legal proceedings be realistic.
Really?
In fact, many attorneys and law professors have praised the film for its accurate depiction of trial strategy and courtroom procedure, especially with regards to presenting expert witnesses at trial. In fact, the film has been screened at some law schools. What? This is bullshit. So this is definitely not.
It'd be
this
so
be
cool
real.
though. What? Why not? They had an arraignment. No. They.
So I need to reiterate that trivia on IMDb is just like Wikipedia pages, and anybody can put whatever they want in here. This does not sound real. There's no way that they use My Cousin Vinny at law schools. There's no way.
You don't know. You're night school.
Shortly after Academy Award win for Best Supporting Actress and the 65th Annual Academy Awards in 1993, a rumor started circulating that Marisa Tomei had won by mistake because Jack Palance had incorrectly read out the wrong name. This is highly unlikely occurrence. The Academy specifically has 2 officials stationed offstage to intervene and read out the correct name if such an event should have transpired. Oh, look it. According to director Jonathan Lynn, the Eastern screech owl in the scene in the woods...
Screech owl, I called it.
...was a real owl that had a little prior training so it wouldn't be scared away from the gunfire. The crew got it to open up its mouth by giving it little pieces of beef, and artificially induced screeches were added to the film in post-production. So you're right.
Owl.
Screech owl is a real thing.
I learned that from Harry
Not
Potter.
Not just the Wizarding World. See how much stuff we learn from movies?
Oh, so many things.
Why ever go to school when you could just watch movies? You could watch My Cousin Vinny and become a lawyer.
That's not true.
The American Bar Association's publication, the ABA Journal, ranked the film number 3 on its list of 25 greatest legal movies. Pesci won the Academy Award for Goodfellas while he was making My Cousin Vinny. Brought the award to set to show the cast and crew.
That's fun. Mona Lisa Vito was not preferred character in My Cousin Vinny. What's that mean? In an interview, Launder revealed that the producers and big bosses wanted to remove Vinny's girlfriend from the movie. Mona Lisa Vito was a car expert, Chinese food loving, and an unemployed hairdresser, which are factors that the studio didn't find appealing. Yeah.
Roger Ebert gave it a thumbs up, but only gave it 2.5 stars. It's a movie that meanders, going nowhere in particular, and then lightning strikes. I didn't get much involved in it, and yet individual moments and some of the performances are very funny. It's the kind of movie home video was invented for. I'd agree with that. And that's, I think, when it actually gained its popularity, and was when it got released to home video. This movie was released in March of 1992. The Oscars are usually in January. So 93 is when Marisa Tomei won the Oscar. So it had 9 months for people to see it in the theater, but then also rent it and watch it at home. Mm-hmm. And if they're renting it probably towards the end of 92, then it probably grew a lot more buzz at the end of the year, right before Oscar season, and that might be one of the reasons. In addition to her good performance, that she won the Oscar. So the Washington Post says Joe Pesci is a total screen pleasure. He grabs whatever comes his way, from Goodfellas to Home Alone, and bullies it into something great. He's charming, menacing, and pit bullish, all at the same time. A tenor-voiced imp of ceaseless energy. Like it. Imp is someone small stature.
I feel like that's not okay.
That was a good review.
Okay.
Entertainment Weekly says, few actors can skip from the high road to the low road as blithely as Joe Pesci. In Raging Bull and Goodfellas, he's a consummate character actor, his beady eyes and rat-a-tat-tat verbal rhythm interlocking with director Martin Scorsese's psychodramatic obsessiveness. In Lethal Weapon 2, Home Alone, and The Super, he's the hyperkinetic fourth stooge. Call him surly. Now in the lumbering, amably stupido fish-out-of-water comedy, My Cousin Vinny, the two sides of Pesci come together. The plot is pure no-brain bunk. Vinny, a black leather-clad East Coast Italian street tough whose delinquent in Hicksville farce makes you long for the wit and sophistication of Doc Hollywood. You ever seen Doc Hollywood?
Mm-mm.
Michael J. Fox.
Ooh. Okay, so on Rotten Tomatoes, My Cousin Vinny scored an 87.
Wow, look at that. 87 on the tomato meter and 87
fresh
audience score. So that's impressive.
That is pretty awesome.
It's a fun movie. Like,
it is a fun movie.
Yeah.
And it's a feel-good movie.
Yeah. It's good. Like,
Joe Pesci's so charming.
It's enjoyable. IMDb has a 7.6.
What?
Yeah. 7.6. That's basically 7.6 out of 10 is 76%. Rotten Tomatoes has 87, you said?
87. Audience score 87.
We definitely both liked it. We've both seen it before. We're gonna stick with our rating that we began with the first episode, with honors, with honors. It's hard to rate these films against each other.
Yeah.
So,
but it's gonna be flowing. It's gonna be flowing. You know,
like, we can adjust as we go.
Exactly. I'm gonna say 10 out of 12.
A 10 out of 12. Wow. Okay.
I liked it a lot.
I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 12.
Okay.
8 out of 12.
Okay.
Yep. So Shay was a 10 out of 12.
Yeah.
Peter was an 8 out of 12 for My Cousin Vinny.
Yeah.
Worth a watch and a rewatch. Mm-hmm. I'm close to or have passed double digits. And I definitely think I'd watch it again someday in the future.
I'm definitely going to watch it again.
Yeah.
Super fun.
Enjoyable.
Feel good.
Hope you found this enjoyable. If so, find us on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube under Stellar Alignment Podcast. Please rate and review us wherever you are listening to this. If you're listening or watching on YouTube, give us a subscribe and a thumbs up. And
check us out next week.
Check out our next episode where we cover Once Upon a Time in America. So
that's going to be a long one.
I hope you've got 4 hours.
Take some time.
Because we do. Hopefully we won't be talking about it for 4 hours.
No, what?
Yeah. We'll try and keep it similar to the length of this episode. Hoping. Because we've got lives too.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can't just watch movies and talk about them.
Why? Why not?
I don't know. But
more that way.
Time to go.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Wait, we can't do that.
No, we can't do that. That's
Smartless's thing.
No. Okay.
It's a tribute. Bye.
Bye. Got a bunch of stuff back
And
there.
road trips are good. So I don't think you're going to need the pen.
Okay,
but if you want to get up...
No, it's fine.
Do you want to get the pen?
No.
We can cut this out.
Nah. Let's do this. There are children watching. Possibly.
Or listening.
Maybe. Or listening.
Well, shame on their parents.
I know.
Because this is about to get dirty.
Nope,
Okay.
it's not.